Live from the Panera Studios, it's the Reading with Robin show, brought to you each week by my friends at Panera Bread, where it's so much more than green, where their salads bring a lot more to the table with satisfying textures and colors that make every bite worth taking. There's so many to choose from. There's nothing I like more than a wonderful salad for lunch. Try the Southwest Chili Lime Ranch salad, or my favorite, their delicious Greek salad with romaine lettuce, vine-ripened tomatoes, feta, pickled red onions, and Kalamata olives with salt and pepper tossed with their special Greek dressing. As always, available in whole or half. It's all at your neighborhood Panera. And now, enjoy the show. It is Pub Day for Saints for All Occasions. Here with her fourth title and fourth appearance on the Reading with Robin show, the author of Commencement, Maine, The Engagements, and now the one with the most words in its title, right? Saints for All Occasions.
Right.
I know. I was like, that's a lot of words for her. Welcome back to Reading with Robin, Courtney Sullivan.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here. It's so much fun.
So excited when we first found out that you had a new book coming out, and this is to say they did a gorgeous job. My galley is so beaten up. The pages are falling out of it. When the finished copies arrived, I mean, it's just dazzling.
Oh, thanks.
Gorgeous, and I'm so excited for this book to be out in the world. People should go to jcourtneysullivan.com, check out the beautiful, the artwork on this is gorgeous, and also the event page to see where you'll be. And it's Tuesday, it's Pub Day, and you're going to be at the most magical place of all tonight.
Yes, books are magic in Brooklyn. I cannot wait with my wonderful friend Emma Straub. It's going to be so much fun.
Are they filming? Do you think she'll maybe do Facebook Live or something?
Oh, I don't know. I will ask her.
You know, because for those of us who can't be in Brooklyn tonight, and it's a very sad thing if you can't be in Brooklyn tonight at Books Are Magic, and you'll be in conversation with Emma Straub. I'm putting in for that. I mean, you know, just to add to the list and find Courtney on Twitter. Are you on Instagram, or did I miss that?
No, everyone's been telling me to get on Instagram, but I just feel like I can't handle one more form of social media. I feel like my whole life will just become social media, but I do kind of lurk on certain people's Instagrams sometimes and look at them.
Well, you just lurk. You know, we were talking off air about people and advice on all sorts of things, and I really think you have to do what you can manage and what you're comfortable with. I'm just asking because I want to make sure that, you know, to alert the Reading with Robin audience where they can find you on Twitter and on Facebook. And there are some hashtags, J. Courtney Sullivan hashtags, so people have tagged you. But, yeah, you're tagged. You're
Nice.
it. Yeah, you are tagged.
That's wonderful. Well, I feel like I have the most photographed dog on the planet, and so everyone has told me just put all your dog photos on Instagram. Like, what are you doing not being there?
Absolutely do that. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And there's nobody that loves dog pictures more than, I mean, we love to look at the dog pictures. And
the best.
Right, when you're an animal lover and we watch the videos, those amazingly cute things. We've done the puppy cams. We'll watch them, you know, just like walking around in their little bedding with their mama. It's relaxing.
There's nothing better. Yeah.
And joyful. Yeah, you can just see that. How old is your puppy? Well, your dog?
He is 6.5.
Aw.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, Ari is 15 and we still call him a puppy. So that's why I wasn't sure. Yeah, I will always say that. I need to go home. The puppy needs me. And people think I've gotten another addition, but I'm like, no, he's my puppy. And I'm speaking with Courtney Sullivan. It's Pub Day. Saints for All Occasions is her brand new gorgeous book. I've fallen in love with this family, the generations of family, their family's journey really from Ireland to the U.S., everything that means, every sort of story where it's that generational model of secrets buried and stories told, things unsaid, or all of the nuances in a family. It's all here with this book, and I am so excited that now readers get to just sink into this novel. What do you want your readers? I mean, what are you hoping to hear from people, that connection that your readers so greatly love when they read a book by you?
Well, it's a good question. I think sometimes when you first start out, you don't even know why exactly these particular characters have this hold on you. But, I had recently at the time met a family friend who I never knew existed, which is something that comes up a lot in Irish Catholic families where somebody's like, Uncle Joe, and you're like, no, I've never heard of that person. And so this was a person, her name is Mother Lucia. She's a cloistered nun. And my aunt had said, you've got to meet Mother Lucia. She went into the abbey before I was born, so I've never met her. And my aunt kept saying, you would just love each other. You've got to meet. And I was thinking, why on earth would we love each other? What would we possibly have in common? But eventually we started writing to each other. I went and visited her just for a couple of hours at a time, and then eventually for many, many nights in a row, and was utterly fascinated by life in this cloistered abbey. And there was something I found out when I was there, which was that for the first time ever, cloistered Catholic nuns are allowed to leave the abbey and go home in case of emergency. So if someone dies or if someone is dying, they're allowed to go home and sort of be with their family for a short period of time. It used to be that once you went into the cloister, you never came out. And I just thought, that's a really interesting idea for a book. This idea about a woman, seeing the world for the first time, really, in decades, and also her family seeing her for the first time in decades. And she is one of these family members where, her, Nora, her sister, is like, my sister, the cloistered nun, and everyone's like, no, Mom, is there a little backstory there?
Right.
So, that was sort of the thing that sort of clicked everything into place. But I think the story had been on my mind. I'd been working it out for about 10 years without knowing it. But it started in Ireland when I went there with my family to Milltown Mall Bay, which is the town in the book. And it's also the town where my great-grandmother grew up, and she traveled to the U.S. at 17 to Boston, and that's where my family has been ever since. And, it kind of struck me visiting there for the first time that it was only because of her that we are American at all, and that our life would have been totally different had she not made this choice at 17 years old. And I think now, this moment we're living in, this particular historical moment, it's important to remember that all of us are immigrants or come from immigrants for the most part. So I didn't think of this as like a particularly political or timely book when I was writing it, but it's weirdly become that in terms of immigration and also in terms of birth control and women and their bodies and all of that stuff.
So much is in this book, and I'm speaking with Courtney Sullivan, the author of Saints for All Occasions. You can visit her site at jcourtneysullivan.com, find her on Twitter, Facebook, and tonight at Books Are Magic for a big pub night with Emma Straub with their gorgeous new bookstore. I've been looking at pictures, and it's going to be amazing, and a whole list of scheduled events you can find on Courtney's site and see where she'll be, and if she's going to be near where you are or if not, it's worth the drive to see Courtney. Always a great event, and there's so much to talk about in this book, and I'm sure you'll get so many people's stories. And you're right, there are so many things that are so current. Same thing, my great-grandmother came over by herself at 15, and landed in New York. I know, and you think, like, what was that like? Nora and Teresa come over as sisters. Nora is to be married to Charlie, who's already come and is in Boston, and she wants to come with her sister. She doesn't really want to go. So it sounds like, right, part of the deal is we're coming together. So, it's kind of like we'll just wait till you save up enough to send for both of us. Now, this Mother Lucia that you came to know, is she related?
She's just a very, very close family friend. Her sister is my aunt's best friend. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because, of course, then you've got my wheel spinning. This story is so interesting, really, because it really makes you sort of think, how long can a secret really stay a secret? And there's one part in the book where I was one of these incredibly dog-eared and bent-back pages they're talking about why did people save what they didn't want found? Maybe because you never dreamed you'd actually die. There was always time to get rid of your ghosts. This is what Bridget, Nora's daughter, wonders when something is found. But there is that idea of things that we save, and if we don't want somebody to really know something, why save them?
I think about it. I have diaries, from high school and college, and they're like, I would die if anyone ever read them. So it's like, and I don't really want to read them. So it's like, why do I have these? But you still have them. And
but why?
So many things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And in talking about this whole topic and where we come from in immigration, you had written a story in the New York Times, the Irish piece, Kiss Me, I'm Pretty Sure I'm Irish. So what was that like to write? Because it was interesting to read about that.
I love that headline, which I did not write, but I love that headline.
Oh, you did? Yeah, it's a great. I thought it was very clever, so I figured you wrote it.
Oh, thank you. I wrote about this idea of sort of ancestry, which, of course, if you can't watch television for 5 minutes without seeing the ads for Ancestry.com, and everyone's doing their DNA now, and so it becomes this question of, so many of us have these stories about where we come from, and what's more powerful, the story or like the facts, the DNA evidence? And especially, I think, not especially, but certainly in the Irish Catholic culture, storytelling is this huge thing. And then at the same time, as you just said about secrets and how long can they stay buried, repression is an equal part of our culture. So it's kind of an interesting balance.
Yeah.
Like what do we know and what don't we? And as you said, when do we learn the secret? Because it can't stay a secret forever. Although I guess some do, but
some do. But somebody usually knows something, tips somebody off, or forgets. You can also forget that something's a secret after 30, 40, 50 years, and it just sort of comes out. Or there's always like a hint. But Nora seems to be really pretty good at changing the story, and there's a sense of protecting herself, protecting her sister, protecting the next generation. It's really interesting to see the tangled web we weave, right? I mean, there's...
Yes. I remember one of the very first drafts of the book, my friend Helen Ellis read it to give me feedback, and she said, and I was doing this thing, it was not working because I kept sort of being like, there's a secret coming, there's going to be a secret. And, Helen was like, oh, for God's sake, just tell us the secret. But, she said, it's always the keeping of the secret that's worse than the secret itself. And that's so true. And that really helped me sort of reframe where to go with the next draft, because you kind of do know pretty early on what's
what it is,
what's happened. But the question then, if the question is not what happened, then the question is, how did this happen, and why did this happen, and what happened next? And to me, that's much more interesting as a writer and as a reader,
Right, because there it is out there, and what are the effects of that secret, and where does it just continue down through the generations? So I was wondering, of course, your favorite saint, for which of your favorite occasions, and are there occasions missing saints? Because Courtney, I'm not that well-versed in the saint world. It's,
oh my God, no, I don't think there's anything missing a saint. I mean, it is crazy. The women I grew up around, my mother's generation, and even more so my grandmother's generation, would always have these. Either it would be like a deck of cards, or it would be a book of little pages, and there would really be, it's funny to look through them, because it will be like a lost pet, like a bad head cold. Everything. And there's something that kind of, it reminds me of like almost, tarot cards or something like that. That this idea of kind of like, and Catholicism has a lot of that, has these objects that are very powerful, like the miraculous medal, which is in the book too, of course, is, it's huge in my family. My mother and my grandmother were so attached to the miraculous medal, and I am too, and I'm not even religious, but when you grow up Catholic, it just stays with you,
It's cultural,
stay on you.
It's comfort, and it's familiar, and it's like, there's also a lot of superstition in a lot of our cultures, so why not, You never know.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Yeah. It's funny. There's probably the saint that came up the most when I was a kid and still does in my home now with my husband, who's also a lapsed Catholic, is St. Anthony, because St. Anthony is who you pray to, for lost things. And I saw the funniest, I think it was from The Onion recently. There was a headline that said, like, St. Anthony is quitting. He no longer wants to be invoked for lost things every time you're, like, looking for your keys or whatever, and which is so the case in my life.
Well, even I know that one because I had a dear friend who would, invoke St. Anthony. There are a few. And Lost Causes, which one is that?
Yep. And St. Francis with all his animals. I love St. Francis. And he was, the character in the book, Bridget, who is this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was wondering about that. Yeah.
In some ways, she's the most sort of saintly of them all because she runs this animal shelter and she loves pit bulls, and she originally in early drafts was a male character, and his name was Francis, sort of in honor of St. Francis. But I
loved that. Yeah, yes, and I love that she is, the caretaker of these animals and the protector, and knowing how much you care for animals. I really loved reading about that and that connection and those little pieces of the puzzle, for your readers who know your books and are just such fans. It's always nice to read things where you think, okay, there was a nod to the animals or to, to the past and those things. And also really thinking about the decisions that we make and the paths that we're set along, that path is made, and can there be a divergence from the path, or is it just set and you just sort of float along that, or the things that sort of pop up where it makes the characters in the book think, could there be a different path, or, am I on it and this is the way it's going to be? When you sort of see other characters in the book maybe being truer to their own hearts, or really looking at how other family members handled things and they think, well, maybe I can do this differently. And we're talking about Saints for All Occasions, Courtney Sullivan's latest and great, just gorgeous. And I love, it's Julia and John, right? They're the couple.
Mm-hmm.
They have adopted a little girl named Maeve, and they name her Maeve. And I love that she gets a 5-minute timeout with a book on the steps. I just thought that was great. Is that part of your parenting plan?
Very, very harsh parenting strategy.
Yeah. It worked in this house, so I really connected with that.
It did?
It's still a joke.
Good.
Yeah, go sit on the steps, I'm out. Yeah, we continue that one. So yeah, I
can remember watching what was that show? It was like Super Nanny or something like that, where it's like these kids are just the most deviant, horrible children on the planet, and then she's like, just sit there quietly, and they do, and suddenly they reform into these angels. So I'm hoping that will work.
It sounds like why not? I think so. I love that parenting strategy, and there's just so many little nuggets there. And the title is just so fitting for so many reasons. Did this book go through several titles, or was that just you always knew it was going to be Saints for All Occasions?
I think it was kind of always going to be the title because, to some extent, of course, it's about religion and it's about the different ways that the people in this family relate to Catholicism, and so the saints literally play a role, but also with a character like, say, Bridget, I'm very interested in the fact that I believe that the people who will most change the world and save lives are oftentimes people whose names we will never hear, who are not going to be celebrated, who are not famous people. And like Bridget is based on a real person. As I said, she started out as a male character, but based on this guy named Sean Casey, who runs an animal shelter in Brooklyn and is truly, I think, like one of the closest things to a saint that we have.
Wow.
And so it's like all of these characters, they have this kind of, they're all kind of save someone in some way. But not everyone knows about it in every case.
That genuine doing and not needing the recognition for it.
Right.
So I really thought that was, that you take such care with how you are creating these characters and who they're going to be. And the guy sort of in high school and talking about Patrick and sort of the trouble he gets into in school and the pack that runs around in this Dorchester neighborhood, Dorchester. Does it make you... Did you think about any of the kids that you went to school with, or sort of the kids that stayed around in the neighborhood and never left, or that?
I think there's like this think it's interesting. I see this a lot. I've seen this a lot with people I grew up with and just people I know in general, that you have siblings, sibling groups where they have nothing in common with each other as far as what their lives have become. And that, I think, is really interesting. And especially, this sort of family, kind of blue-collar Irish Catholic family from Dorchester. I know tons of families just like that, where one sibling has gone on, like John does, to become very wealthy, very successful. Another sibling is like Patrick and stays around and, wants nothing different in life. And I think there's something really interesting about that, because there's something, I always like novels that deal with class to some degree. And I feel like one thing that you don't see in a lot of novels is the fact that within families, there's often people of different social classes. And what does that do? And how does that affect the relationship between siblings in particular? So definitely, I think I know tons of guys like Patrick and like Brian in the book who are still very kind of like hyper-masculine and behaving in a certain way that's really different than where some people, perhaps my Brooklyn neighbors, think that the world has kind of evolved to.
No, it is interesting, because as you were talking, I was thinking about some of the kids I went to school with, and because a lot of us keep in touch on Facebook, and you sort of see that also, and the people that are still sort of keeping those groups going, and like you say, when one sibling sort of breaks out of that, and how that's seen, and sort of the teasing that goes on, and wanting to sort of be around that essence, and the whole sort of neighborhood vibe just comes down through that, and you sort of revert to that when you're around that gang sometimes also, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. Yeah, and that's the thing I love about your books, really, the family, the connections, the relationships, the incredibly well drawn out characters and people that I absolutely think about. I still think about the ones from Maine and from Commencement. I talk about those so often, and the engagement. I remember these storylines. They really do they stay with me. So your storytelling is something that's so impactful, and books that I love to recommend to people, because that's one of my favorite things to do. And I'm speaking with Courtney Sullivan, author of Saints for All Occasions, out today. You can find her at jcourtneysullivan.com. and at Books Are Magic tonight in Brooklyn, and she'll be all over New Hampshire, Maine, D.C., Pennsylvania. They've got you traveling all over the place, and also, and you're here too. And there were several Rhode Island references, which I loved. You had RISD in there. There's something else about Rhode Island that popped up. So you'll be in Rhode Island at Savoy Bookshop on May 30th. And then with me on Wednesday, June 7th, we'll be at Bryant Park in conversation also with Julia Fierro and Courtney Mom, and that's going to be fun.
I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, 2 years in a row we've had perfect weather. So there's some superstition in the book. I'm full of that as well. So we're going to go with
We have to find the patron saint of good weather. I don't know who it is. I'll have to look it up.
Will you do that?
Although, yes, at my wedding, I have to tell you, here's a perfect clash of cultures. All the older Catholic women in my family went around hanging rosary beads from trees because it was supposed to rain, and that's supposed to ward off the rain.
Yeah.
Well, one of my heathen friends / best friend / bridesmaids, she finds these rosary beads hanging, and she goes like, "Oh, someone lost their rosary beads," so she took them off the trees, and it ended up pouring on us. And so Catholic women will always believe that it was because of the rosary beads. So I will bring some rosary beads on our June date.
Thank you. Well, they must have looked beautiful hanging like that. That's so funny. She took them off thinking like someone left their mitten on a fence. Let me find out where these belong.
That's exactly what she was thinking, yes. Yes.
That is very funny / heathen. That's even the better part. That's awesome. And before I let you go, I have to, of course, ask what you're reading, what you're loving, what you're recommending to people say, what should I read? Oh, and before also, lobsters, the Blizzard of '78. Was that lobster story from something that had happened?
Yes, my uncle actually told me that story about himself recently, and I loved it, so I put it in there. I was born in 81, so I feel like I hear so much about the blizzard of 78, but I never, but I wasn't there.
Yeah, no, but I read that, because I was in ninth grade at the blizzard of 78, so it's left its impression greatly. Yeah. So when that just jumped out, and I'm like, I got to ask Courtney. There's a lobster story in the Boston area. That must be true. So you're going to have to read Saints for All Occasions to find out what is the blizzard of 78 lobster story. Okay, now tell us what you're reading and what you want to recommend.
So, I'm like my save in case of emergency book that I'm deciding, do I want to save it or do I want to just read it, is the new Elizabeth Strout. I'm dying
don't
save
it. Just read it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't save it.
I was late to Lucy Barton. I didn't read it until maybe 6 months ago and just loved it so much.
I like that new title, Late to Lucy Barton. I actually like that new title.
Yeah, Late to Lucy Barton.
I love that you've retitled.
That's my next novel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm also really excited to read Marlena by Julie Bunton, which I've heard such great things about.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah, Julie's coming to read at Point Street Reading Series in June.
Oh, good.
So I'm very excited. Yes, Marlena, that one came out in just a few weeks ago, I think early April. I don't know, the time is running so fast. Oh, so great books. I love that.
And my other fave recently, not that recent, but I've been talking about it nonstop since I finished it, is Heat and Light by Jennifer Haig.
I have not read that. Okay. Yeah, everyone's
Well,
that
I don't think enough people have read it. I'm always going around trying to get everyone to read it because it was on every best-of list, but I just feel like not enough people read it. It just is, I love the way she writes about families and the way she writes about people in a community, and this book has all of that, plus I think it's because you hear it's a novel, it's sort of about fracking, and you're like, ooh, that doesn't sound very sexy. But it is so good. It is fantastic.
Heat and Light. Oh, I loved Mrs. Kimball, and I have this one. I
love Mrs. Kimball.
Yes, I just haven't read it yet. Oh, that's
favorite.
Good. So you've got great titles there. I love to read if you're reading it or you're recommending it, I love to know about it and the Reading with Robin audience, and I think I'm going to get you out on time, but I'm very excited. I hope there's some taping at Books Are Magic because that would be so exciting for those of us who can't be in Brooklyn tonight. Find out every place Courtney will be. Visit jcourtneysullivan.com and check out the Facebook page and find her on Twitter, and very excited to share Saints for All Occasions with the readers. You are in for a treat. Do not miss this book. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, Courtney.
You too. Thank you so much.